Welcome back, metalheads, and today I'm spinning the wax with Tori Kravitz from Knotfest's She's with the Band and Beyond the Breakdown, and we're going to be sobbing along to Alice in Chains' Dirt. Don't go anywhere, it all starts right now.
All right, it's about 9:30 a.m. We're in Leeds outside of O2 Academy where tonight Electric Callboy is playing, so let's get in there. You guys are promoting this as the most blasphemous tour yet, the most evil tour yet.
I mean, we want to be better than church.
I know, I've got some blood on here.
Is that your blood or
That's a good question.
babies?
I think it looks like the babies, because it dried weird.
I am joined by Morgan, Mercedes, and Tara of Kitty. It's Lizzie Hale from Hailstorm.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
It is an absolute honor to welcome Tatiana from Ginger to the podcast.
My pleasure to be.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Spinning the Wax, where we listen to your favorite artists' favorite records. My name is John Garcia, aka Stay Puffed, the Metal Marshmallow, and your friendly neighborhood headbanger. I am so happy to finally be able to present this episode to you. I have been sitting on it for way too long, and it finally gets to see the light of day. My guest today is my good friend and Knotfest colleague, Tori Kravitz, who's host of the femme-centric podcast She's with the Band, as well as the Knotfest premium series Beyond the Breakdown. And we spend a wonderful, if not depressing, hour listening to Alice in Chains' 1992 masterpiece, Dirt. This is a favorite and cherished record for both of us for a lot of different reasons and in a lot of different ways, but it really served, in Tori's words, as a vessel to open up some really meaningful and deep conversation, and I think that experiencing this album together really helped us understand and know each other a bit better than we did before. If you're not familiar with Tori, first of all, how dare you, but she's a rock star, a queen, a badass, one of the hardest working and most passionate and genuine people that you'll meet, not to mention just a joy to be around. On She's with the Band, Tori sits down for interviews with the music industry's greatest female leaders in rock, metal, alternative, heavy, and extreme worlds. Her show amplifies the voices of women on stage, backstage, and in the business, and her interviews are just so engaging and natural. It just feels like she's catching up with an old friend on every single one of them. Recent guests include Lizzie Hale of Hailstorm, Donita Sparks of L7, Meg Mills of Turnstile, Nadia Polin of Cold Chamber, among plenty of others. Tori also hosts Beyond the Breakdown, where she takes you behind the curtain and beyond the music to show you how your favorite bands put together and pull off their whole live concert experience. The Knotfest Premium series currently has episodes with Electric Callboy, Enter Shikari, Twin Temple, and a brand new one that just dropped with Knocked Loose, motherfucker. Head over to knotfest.com to sign up for Knotfest Premium to get access to all of those episodes, as well as access to exclusive music, documentaries, live concert streams, the Slipknot Vault, pre-sale codes, and discounts on Knotfest merch, and so much more. During the episode today, Tori and I talk about the massive influence that Alice in Chains had across myriad genres, not just rock and grunge, but sludge and doom and everything else in between, as well as how they're such a good example of authenticity in music. Tori also talks about her entry into heavy music, imposter syndrome, starting a video blog at 14, vulnerability as a woman in the music industry, as well as her choice of AIC's songs to sing for car karaoke. We also have some real talk about depression, anxiety, and the different facets of our mental health that try their best to hold us down, even though we won't let them do so. Let it be known that this was one of the first episodes and interviews that I recorded for this podcast way back when I had absolutely zero idea of what I was doing. Not that that really has changed all that much since. But that being said, Tori did not hesitate to jump on and lend her time because that's just the type of person that she is. And I think you'll come to that conclusion pretty quick as well, considering the fact that despite Dirt being just an absolute downer of an album, we managed to have a smile on our face for most of the time. Most of the time, not all, but most of the time. And I hope that you will as well. Please welcome Tori Kravitz. Tori, thank you for coming on. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. We're long overdue for a catch up, so I'll take any excuse to chat with you and talk music.
And I know that we were talking about this before recording, like we could probably go like hours and hours and hours and hours on everything like that. But before we get into the album and everything like that, just tell me how you've been recently, what you've been up to. I know you've been crazy busy recording She's with the Band and getting Beyond the Breakdown published after like almost a year, I think it was, what we were talking about. Like, holy shit. As well as bouncing back and forth all over the States and to the UK and everything. Like, you're a busy woman.
I am a busy woman, but I can't complain for a second because this is the kind of stuff I want to be busy with. I've been so happy to finally have music be the absolute focal point of everything in my life. Like Beyond the Breakdown, like you said, was a really long time coming. The episode of Electric Callboy's out. It's coming out every month, new episodes. She's with the Band is busy. It's doing
Yeah.
better than ever. It's been wonderful. And yeah, and then I do publicity as like my actual day job. Like
Oh
in
yeah,
case
there's
that
bills
wasn't
that have
enough.
to get paid for like whatever reason.
Yeah. So my PR job at Adam Splitter keeps me really busy working with some cool bands. So yeah, everything's great. How are you?
I'm surviving. It's been a year, tough year. Lots of depression, and then doing brain work, and then going through that, doing self care on top of everything else that's been going on with like freelance work being all crazy. So surviving is the best way to put it. But otherwise, like I'm doing good. I can't really complain about anything other than just like getting up and putting one foot in front of the other every day. But kind of like what you're saying, I've been, working on this project here. We're so early, I don't even have a name for this thing. Maybe by the time, actually, hopefully by the time it publishes, we'll have a name. I got to work on that. But yeah, it's been great to just kind of focus on, as like content creators and people in the music industry and like being on social media and stuff like that, I'm sure that you get the whole like anxiety and like, oh, I've got to do all this stuff for all these people or this audience or these expectations that people have. And yeah, with the anxiety that I have to center myself every couple of months to be like, yo, dude, just focus on yourself. Don't worry about anything else that's going on. Don't make anybody else like make you feel bad from like what they're doing or what they're not doing or anything like that. And it's a good like centering practice for me to kind of remember that. Be like, hey, it doesn't matter what the fuck anybody else is doing. Just focus on you.
Yes, I appreciate that that was such an honest answer because I'm such a person of authenticity. And of course, things are great in my world. But, similarly, like life happens. I've
Yeah.
had things in my life happen and you just got to keep on trucking. But yeah, I definitely understand the pressure thing too. But I think one thing I've always appreciated about you and genuinely just like Knotfest as a whole is our authenticity to loving music and
Yeah.
promoting things that we genuinely love. And so I always try to make sure that everything I do is something that I genuinely stand by and will stand by a few years from now because I want everything that we do to be timeless, So I would say the same for this project. Like it's what you're doing. Like this is really cool and just genuine conversations. So thank you for your honesty. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
you're
life's
welcome.
crazy.
Yeah, and I'm sure you feel the same way, but I do, feel a little bit of a responsibility given how honest a lot of the bands that we interview and a lot of the artists that we talk to are, they're pouring all of their shit for us to listen to and like dissect and like, look at and all this other stuff. So while I'm not saying I'm going to be like that front forward and honest when I'm just talking with people, like I do still feel like, hey, I want to try and I don't want to come off as like fake or genuine or hiding something or anything like that. You know what I mean? So I think, especially in the world that we live in, mental health is a big thing. And just being honest and open about it, hopefully will lessen the stigma to that. So I try not to hide, my depression and all that other stuff. Thankfully, we're in the good times. The bad times were earlier in this year, and we've been doing fine ever since about March, I think.
Good. I'm glad to hear that, like winter's always tough too for the
Oh,
mental
yeah.
health. And I do struggle with anxiety pretty badly as well, which makes being on the internet really fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad to hear you're doing better now.
So enough with all this like feelings bullshit and all this like other
Let's
stuff.
really get into our feelings, John, with the album
Emotions.
that like really puts me in my feelings.
Yeah, well, we're talking about like depression and fucking like sadness, and thankfully, I don't think either of us struggle from addiction, but there's a lot of addiction in this album as well. So today we're going to be listening to the 1992 Alice in Chains masterpiece, Dirt, one of my absolute favorite albums, and I was so stoked when you said that you wanted to listen to this. And you were telling me that this is one of your favorite albums, very foundational, got you through a lot of tough times as it did for me. Why do you love this album, Tori?
Yeah, it's for me it was a big gateway album and when anybody asks me who my favorite band is or favorite album is, to me Alice in Chains is the obvious answer because they're timeless. They are timeless no matter what point of my life I'm in. I can find something in this record. But definitely when I'm sad, I don't know if you're like this, but I'll sometimes have a song autoplay in my head that just resonates with the sadness, and it's always Down in a Hole for me. So
Yeah.
it's just, this is the album I latch onto in any difficult time in my life. And also gateway to grunge. I know for a lot of people it was Nirvana,
Mhm.
but for me it was Alice in Chains. This is the album that made me love grunge. So
That's interesting because I was late coming to this one. So I was born in '89, right? So by the time that this album was out, I was fucking 3 years old, right? I didn't even really know who Lane Staley was until he passed away, because I was just about the time that I was getting into music. But it was, middle to late college that I really dug into Alice in Chains. I was into Nirvana, was my, gateway into not just grunge, but like really like more alternative music and stuff like that in general. Like, I just found it at a perfect time. Like, bad shit was happening. I just gotten out of a really bad relationship. College is frustrating. I didn't know what I was going to be doing with my life. I was like, is there even any fucking point to finishing this and everything like that? But it's been interesting catching up on all of this after the fact, 15, almost 20 years after the fact when this album came out. So I think it's going to be interesting to see kind of our different viewpoints of this album, given that this was such a foundational album for you and really helped spur what you listen to now. And I was already well in to my heavy metal phase and like even playing in bands and stuff like that before I found this album.
funny you say that, because same. I mean, I'm 95. So like
Okay, yeah.
I was like not alive when this album came out.
Yeah.
I definitely found it later too. Like I wasn't super into grunge until college as well, where I found this album. But I guess I'm not that person where I need to be like, yeah, I found it when it came out, and
Yeah.
I'm an OG
I
fan
used to be like that. I
have
was very
credibility.
ashamed of like,
Yeah.
when I found stuff, because of just like growing up in gatekeeping metal circles and stuff like that. And especially in like the 2000s era, it was very much, you had
Totally.
the masculine new metal thing and everything like that. It was just like, what the fuck? Like, it's just like, oh, I just discovered Cannibal Corpse. Like, you haven't listened to all 10 Cannibal Corpse albums? You can't name me. I was like,
Totally. I have no shame in saying I also found this album later on. What I think is important is that it resonates. And if you find this album literally today with this pop, less credible of a fan than anybody who heard it the day it came out. If it means something to you, that's what's important. So I'm late on this one too, but now it's foundational in my life for sure.
Yeah, and exactly what you just said about someone discovering this through the podcast, it's kind of my hope. Like, obviously, this is a huge album, and I'm sure that a lot of people that are going to be clicking on this episode are going to be have heard it before. But also, like, we take for granted sometimes, like, albums or bands that you quote unquote should listen to, right? And exactly what we were saying, for whatever reason, there are bands that either pass you by, you've heard of, or that you just like, well, maybe I'll get to them someday. I think I'd like them, but I'll get to them. Or all the time for me, like, I like Alice in Chains. That's Alice Cooper, right? You just get that weird, cross section in your mind where it's like, I thought that the Black Dahlia Murder was like a standard deathcore band for like the longest time when they first came out, which is not true at all. But I really do hope that whether anybody is like discovering this album for the first time or like reliving it vicariously through us talking about it, that they can just experience it. And if it is someone's first time, I'm going to be so stoked and hope that they can go and listen to it after this podcast and just rinse it over and over again, because I mean, it's an hour long, and we could talk about this on whether you think that it should stay an hour. I love dissecting sequencing and whether an album should like cut this track or move this track somewhere. But like there is, I mean, it's this album, I think you would agree with me, is probably as close to a masterpiece as you as a band could probably get to. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Well, before we get into listening to it, is there anything else that you want to say about this album, or what you're expecting with this listen, or anything like that?
All I know is I'm already bracing myself for the opening. Like I'm just sort of getting the like nervous excitement to start it.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at.
I one of the things that I love about this project is it's paradoxical. Is like, cool, let's listen to an album, but that's also let's talk over the album at this same exact time.
Well, I've listened to this album without talking many a time, so I enjoy having some company for once.
Cool, and then so we can hold each other and cry and be depressed as we get through. So if you're ready, I'm ready, and I say that we should do it.
Fucking rock. Let's
All
go.
right, so this is Dirt by Alice in Chains. Let's go. I'm probably going to be like horribly out of tune singing. Just like the combination of one of the things. So Jerry Cantrell and Lane Staley's voice merging together to create almost like its own kind of phrasing and its own vocal style. It's like it's like the Voltron of grunge or something, like that. They combine into a completely separate entity, which is one of my favorite things about this band.
There's so much depth on this album, and totally like the way that their voices go together, it just sounds like one power voice. It's beyond a harmony. It's crazy.
When I first discovered this album, I couldn't even tell them apart for the longest time,
This song is so crazy because it tells you how confident they are. Like, I'm sorry, you don't just start an album like this. Who do they think they are?
So apparently the track listing when it was released in 92 was different than the track listing that we're listening to today. So Down on a Hole was towards the end of the record, but they moved it because that's how the way that the band always wanted it to. So to have a 4-song run at the beginning of an album, Them Bones, Damn That River, Rain and I Died, Down in a Hole, end the album there. And bands would record that and then fucking retire if anybody else had done that.
Dude, I know. It's like those songs would have been enough. I'm so glad they didn't just release those 4 because some of my favorites are in the latter part of the track list.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a crazy start.
Bounding up a big old pile of damn bones.
I'm really silly listening and singing along to this album too, because I'm always like, damn bones.
Well, it's like, I listened to this a couple of days ago when we were talking about it, and like there is a lot of like proto-yarling on this. It started it to rain when I Damn That River right now. Just like I remember learning this riff for the first time, and I just can't stop playing it.
It's another stinky riff. Like, if you're looking for the stinky riff album, look no further.
Yeah, and we'll get to it when we get to, oh shit, I forget if it's Dirt or Godsmack, but this album being such an influence on, sludge and even doom in some points, like the guitar tone on that lends itself to it, but just like you're talking about, that automatic stank face riffs that you get in there, just like with this one right here, and just like, like you basically feel like you've been sucking on a lemon through this entire album because you're just like, your face is gonna stick right in here, just
It's nasty. And you're talking about like the influence in sludge and other genres. I actually had Tatiana from Ginger on the podcast recently.
Yeah.
And this is like her favorite band, Alice in Chains.
Oh, yeah.
Which I was really surprised to hear because they're like very prog metal. Like you just wouldn't. So I think what's cool about Alice in Chains is how many different kinds of musicians can love this band or be influenced by this band, and you may not even know it because of how timeless they are. And even, what I had asked Tatiana about in regards to Alice in Chains, because I'll take any opportunity to talk about Alice in Chains.
Yeah, of course.
Was like the storytelling aspect of this album, which I'm sure we'll get into as well, of like, as songwriters, what you can learn from this too, in vulnerability and storytelling and the way this album makes you feel. And I think Ginger has some of those aspects too. So I don't know, just something inspiring to me.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many bands that I talk to, whether it's in extreme metal or rock and roll or things that you wouldn't even think about with like having like a grunge influence or something like that. They're like, yeah, we love Alice in Chains because it's heavy. It describes exactly everything that we wanted to do as far as making an honest, bleak album by just like being who you are. And I'm sure we'll get into this as well, because you were talking about how the album flows, and like it is, I always had a thought before I like read anything about this that was kind of like concept adjacent, right? There's some albums that may not exactly be a concept album, but they fit a vibe, or you can put a story in your head. And this is, I think Lane Staley has said that this is like semi-conceptual and everything like that. And that storytelling you were talking about towards the end of the album, where you're just like, oh my God, like I'm isolated and just like under the ground and away from, there's no light here. It's just all bad. And you get from this, these energetic songs that we're listening to right now. And then by the end of the album, you just want to like curl up in the fetal position and fucking cry.
Yep. That's exactly it. But yeah, I think there's something to be said, like, I love when bands seem so nonchalant and like they're not trying, but at the same time you know that they are because of how cohesive and elaborate an album is. And I do think this is one of those where I'm just like, I know what you all are doing here.
Yeah. And just the flow. So we started Rain When I Die, which another bass line, like the bass, Mike Starr, just like so many classic things. We'll get to Wood at some point, right? And this is another like doomy, sludgy kind of intro with this atmosphere. We're 5 minutes barely into this album right now, and look at the trajectory or the terrain, the musical terrain that we've done so
I
far.
like the word terrain. That is a
Yeah.
good word. You know what's funny? This song, I mean, look, in my opinion, this is a no skip album. Like every song is great, but this
Yeah.
is one where sometimes I do skip.
Oh, really?
We're starting to get into one where I'm like, I love it, but like depends on my mood.
Okay, there's one coming up that we'll talk about here, but I do love this song just because, I don't know, I always feel like I'm with Lane on this one. Well, actually, this one was one of the only songs on this one that has all 4 members of the band credited on the writing samples for this. But like, I'm kind of with Lane on this one. I feel like it's gonna rain when I die. I don't know why. Just have that feeling. Whether I'm gonna hold off on this vocal line in a second because I can never get it out of my head right here.
The stinky face is back, and now I'm doing the Italian hand. for
Why
some
am I
reason.
Italian all of a sudden? When I die, his
It's one of those things,
vocal
when I don't
control.
skip the song, I do love it.
Yeah.
Every time I do listen to it, I'm like, yeah.
Is it the fade out intro that fades back in? Is that what does it for you? You're like, we don't have time for this.
Maybe it depends on how much time I've got.
Yeah,
Because it is a long song and it does kind of drawl, you know?
yeah.
So what do you think that means, Rain When I Die, since you're saying you suspect that that's going to happen?
I just think that it's gonna be like cloudy and overcast. I don't know. I have this. I spend not in a morbid way, right? I'm a metalhead, right? We like thinking about like the darker edges of stuff. I do
course.
spend a lot of time thinking about death, and not like my death or like dying, but just like, you know, the general mystery that happens, right? We're all gonna die at some point. When is it gonna be? We don't know. Are you afraid of it? I guess it depends on what you got going on in that week. There's some weeks that you're like, no, I can't die right now. I've got a movie that I'm gonna see at the end of the week. And the other times you're like, honestly, if a bus hit me right now, that would save me a lot of problem from this meeting that I've got to go to, or like whatever the fuck, right? I have this just weird feeling that whatever it is, whether I'm like fucking like 90 years old and in a nursing home, which knock on wood I won't be, or if it's just like I have 45 and have like an aneurysm somewhere, because I can have it to anybody. Can you tell that I have anxiety, Tori? I don't know. I just think that there's going to be
because I resonate with everything you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. No, I just think that there's going to be a overcast, gray mist and rain. I guess. I don't know. Maybe that's me trying to prophesize or like a self-fulfilling prophecy or something like that. But that's the shit that I think about. And I resonate with the song, I think.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because on the other end of the spectrum, this is like totally unrelated to Alice in Chains, but well, not really, because I'm going somewhere with it. But Miley Cyrus has a song where she says, "I wonder what would happen if I die. I hope all my friends get drunk and high." And like that's the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
You know, like which side are you on?
Right.
I think I fall more on the Rain When I Die side as well. You know, as metalheads, we do love the doom and gloom and drama of it all. But do we know if it rained when Lane Staley died?
It was April 5th actually in Seattle. I would imagine so. Let's see.
That has to be.
We could check it out. He died April 5th. What year? 2002. What was the weather in Seattle April 5th, 2002? There was 0.03 inches of precipitation around 9 p.m. the evening that Lane Staley died. So
That counts.
That counts. I think it counts.
I like this song more now because it actually he manifested that for himself, I guess. Also embracing myself.
Honestly, I love it. I love false endings to begin with. And then when it comes back in, and then, all right, Tori, you're gonna have to hold me with this one. Now we're in Down in a Hole.
Me too.
And
That's also why I said I was bracing myself because I knew this was next. And
Yeah.
this song really messes me up.
You were talking about timeless, and this is one of those songs. Like, you can feel something always with the song, whether it comes on in shuffle, whether you're sad and listening to it, or like right now, you can just feel that melancholy. You can feel that angst and that depression. And I
There's a
always
weight
do
on my
get
shoulders when I hear this song.
I always do get a little bit sad when listening to this album. Like, we were kind of making light of did it rain when Lane Staley died? But like, the last few years of his life were so sad, and like he isolated himself so much, and you can hear like the last few years of his life here in this, with him doing this, down a hole, I've eaten the sun, Oh my God.
It's really heavy. Like I actually just have chills because I've never gone through anything to the extent of what Lane experienced in his lifetime. I know that for certain, which I'm grateful for. But I think no matter what you've suffered with or struggled with, we all know pain of some kind like this. And so anybody can find themselves in this song, which I think is part of what makes it so timeless and beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of genre transcendent as well.
I was literally going to say one of the marks of what I think is a really good song. Metallica does this a lot, where it's like, their early songs, they're, thrashy and they're fast and everything like that. But the fact that you can take like a, Ride the Lightning and transpose it on harp or like piano or something like that is, in my opinion, the mark of a great song. And exactly what you said. I mean, think about how many bands have covered this and even like, when Code Orange did this, they still did a, you wouldn't think of Code Orange to cover this song, even though that's another band very heavily influenced by Alice in Chains. But like they did stay pretty, traditional and pretty true to this style, which I think you kind of have to with the way that the song is written. But yeah, it just transcends music where anybody could put their spin on this, kind of like Charles Bradley covering Changes by Black Sabbath. Like get a soul singer, to sing this song. I don't know if that's happened. I'm sure it has, but I bet you we would just be fucking bawling in tears hearing that.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, this is my go-to. Like when I'm in a bad spot, like many a time have I cried in my car and then been like, it's time.
Yeah.
And then on this song goes as loud as possible. And it's sort of that feeling of it's soothing because you feel like you're heard and understood. And I think that's one of the most important things about music is the ability to feel heard and understood and like you're not alone.
In my before times life, I went to school to be a photojournalist. So I worked in newspapers after college and, drove around Indiana and Michigan and all these other places for photo assignments. So I spent a lot of time in my car. And after like really, really frustrating days, I had basically like a karaoke playlist where I would just like, these are the songs that I can belt on the highway at like 11:30 at night in the dark to just kind of like get all of my feelings out. And this was one of them because you feel that catharsis, for me at least, just screaming, and singing along to this, the dynamics of like the really intense yelling in this part here, there's this bridge before this last chorus that's really quiet and really sensitive. I have karaoke'd this a couple of times, which can either be very good or very bad, depending on the crowd and depending on like the time of night.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's like actual karaoke at like a bar or something in front of an audience, this song.
Yes.
Wow. That is a bold choice. I will say I'm more of a Break Stuff Limp Bizkit for karaoke kind of girl.
Yeah,
but
there you go.
That also can go many different directions depending on the crowd.
Yeah, it's true. Just tables throwing. It's like fucking Woodstock 99 all over again.
Pretty much.
People surfing on plywood boards and stuff like that.
My Alice in Chains karaoke song is later in this track list, though.
Amazing. I wonder what it is. I'll guess.
I don't know if I've never done it for actual karaoke, but it's like the in the car sing along belt as loud as possible song.
Yeah.
Which no one really knows until now, unfortunately, for better or for worse.
So we are on Sick Man right now. This
Another
I think
stinky
is
one.
Yeah, I think this is probably my song that I'd be like, if I had to cut one of them, I think I might cut this one. I don't know if that's sacrilege. I'm sure there's someone like throwing their phone at the radio right now or like throwing their phone across the room or whatever. But like for me, going from Down on a Hole to Rooster, maybe they put this in there so you needed that break a little bit. So they didn't want the two kind of, ballady songs or whatever. But I don't know.
agree
Just
on
like,
this one. This one does drag a tiny bit
It does.
compared to, and the bar is just too high.
That's
And
what
I
I'm
think
saying.
that's why.
Yes.
Like the bar is so high on this album that like anything that's not perfection I'm like, eh.
And again, like what we were talking about, especially with the 4 songs that just preceded this one, you go from like banger,
It's
banger,
crazy.
banger, banger that get almost like better as they go, and then you just have good song, right? And like
I just
you
think
know,
this one maybe doesn't have the dynamics, like the same ups and downs of a song. Like it's
Yeah.
very straight through,
sure,
which is nothing wrong with that. I like how it kind of drones on in a way. Like there's a vibe to it for sure. But
in my opinion, I'm just kind of thinking about this right now since I just listened to this a couple of days ago. But this is kind of like an overture towards the end of the album, because this one definitely feels like it could work between like Junkhead or Godsmack or something like that. But I don't know. It just doesn't have that same weight, I think, that like Hate to Feel or Angry Chair has. But this definitely is that, you know, that slow, kind of more sludgy riff that gets through. But yeah, I agree. Just it just is not set
it's
up for
also a
success.
slow part of the album because Down in a Hole and Rooster are both ballads that I feel like
Mhm.
I love the dynamics of this track list, how it does start off so big and loud and heavy, and then it dips down. But I think maybe there could have been a dip up right here.
Yeah.
Maybe
But I
that's
don't
just
know.
me.
Look at us try to like
know,
Monday
who do
morning
we
quarterback
think
a
we are?
masterpiece of an album. It's like, oh
Like,
no, I'm
and
sorry.
especially
Like,
as the girl who's like never properly made music or released an album in her life. Like,
yeah,
that's the funny thing about music critics sometimes is like
Yeah.
we could sit here and critique things all day, and our opinion valid to a certain degree, but also shut up.
yeah. It's true.
I'm very self-aware of that for sure, which is why I don't write album reviews.
Sick man, sick man, sick man. Oh, we were
That was a
talking
good
about this, and then I
impression.
got distracted by the album. Or I mentioned a little while ago, early in the album, how there's a lot of like proto yarling in this, because you're talking about when you're like, them bones, you know, you have that kind of like drawl or whatever it is. Even though
Yeah.
like you can see the influence from, you know, like later grunge, you know, like your Puddle of Muds and everything like that. But it's not as grating and as jump the shark, I think, on this one. It's just the way that he has his delivery and everything like that. But I did notice that to be like, oh yeah, you can draw a straight line from, you know, this album and even, you know, the Pearl Jam album that came out around this time into the, you know, Scott Stapp higher.
For sure. You know, it's funny. I had a friend who had never listened to Alice in Chains, and I introduced them to a couple of albums. And the first thing they noticed was how often Lane goes, yeah, which
Yeah.
I can't unnotice because, you know, I'm so used to Alice in Chains that I never really noticed how many filler yeahs there are.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-oh, we're getting to the big hit.
Oh, dude, this intro of Rooster, just that. Oh, it's timeless.
Isn't it? I love those songs where within 2 seconds you know exactly what it is.
Yeah, yeah, and just like you feel like the whole song within like a second, you know?
I do have an Alice in Chains shirt with a rooster on it, and I do know that if anybody doesn't know Alice in Chains and sees me wearing that shirt, it's super uncool, but if you do know, it's super cool. Just a big chicken on my shirt.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, she must really like fried chicken. To the vegan.
Right. I'm like, I am super vegan, but I do love chickens.
Mm.
And I rooster and roosters. What are your thoughts on this being the biggest single from the album?
I get it. So it's like it's a little surprising given it's the longest song on the album and it's more like ballady. But also, I know so many people that don't really listen to Alice in Chains that love Rooster.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember being really surprised because yeah, this isn't the song you would think like this is single material, but it does work. It is a very long song. Anytime it's on the radio, I'm like, we're here for a while and I'm happy about it.
Yeah, you like your, you know, your 3.5 minute bops. I love my 9.5 minute fucking like technical progressive black metal songs and whatever.
This is why we get along, John, because we both do.
Yeah, exactly. But like that's, you know, I love all of those things. And the way you just get hit, like you get knocked over when the guitar tone comes in.
I love a song with a slow build that just grows bigger and bigger.
Yeah, it's so hard to do. So what really got you into heavy music and stuff like that? I don't think that we've really ever talked about this. I know that, Warped Tour was a huge moment for you as like a teenager and a budding like rock fan and everything like that.
Mhm.
But what was your like interest that like really started that spark of the flame that got you into sitting here right now?
Good question. It's so cliche, but I was bullied a lot in school and family life wasn't so great as a teenager, and I needed to put that angst somewhere.
Yeah.
And I discovered Flyleaf
Yeah, hell
and
yeah.
like Pierce the Veil's first album, Flair for the Dramatic. And I loved that outlet because I'm not an aggressive person. I'm not an angry person. I very much go inward. And it goes back to what I was saying of those songs and the music that makes you feel heard and understood. And in a moment of a lot of anger and being completely misunderstood, I found my world,
I love
And
that.
it was like a slow build because I loved pop punk and I was always a bit of an alternative kid.
Yeah,
Like
you
my
had your
first Warped
scene,
Tour
you
was
had your
like
scene time.
I had my scene time. I went to Warped Tour and saw Never Shout Never and Hey Monday and all that back in the day. And
Yeah.
but at that same time, that's why Warped Tour was so great because I heard all that really heavy stuff too. And I was like, whoa. Like I think Bring Me the Horizon was on it that year with Suicide Season and whatever. So I had like a curiosity and a bit of a rebellion towards all of that.
Yeah.
And then never left. So, but I was definitely more of a metalcore kid before I got into some more refined music. So it was
Yeah,
a bit
well,
of a journey.
especially at the time period and everything like that.
Yeah.
It's funny because I went the exact opposite way. So many of my friends now, and friends that I've made through like the music industry and stuff like that, seem to, everyone had like an emo phase or like a scene phase or something like that. I never did. I hated
Good
it.
for
like
you.
scene music, I fucking hate even like now to this, but the kind of like whiny sort of vocals and stuff like that. Depending on how it is, I can do it. But if it's just like straight screamo or screamo inspired or whatever, I'm just like, not for me. But it's really funny to talk with people about that because there have been like like some of the bands that you just mentioned. It's like I've never listened to a single song from them, and people are like I was yelling all their albums when I was 14 and this and that, and I was like I was listening to Iron Maiden and Iced Earth and Blind Guardian because I'm a fucking nerd.
I wish I had gone that way. Believe me, John.
No, you
I
don't.
wish
No, you
I
don't.
wish I couldn't attribute Asking Alexandria to my gateway into metal. Like
Yeah.
it's not cool by any means.
But you're
But
here
it's the
now, so who
truth.
gives a fuck, right?
Totally. Yeah. And it was just like a slow progression where, I was doing interviews on my YouTube channel at 14 and
Yeah.
went to Mayhem Festival and then found Slipknot and I was like, oh shit, I'm in.
That's
so it was a
amazing.
pretty quick transition into all that.
Yeah. So you
Also, by
just-
the way, Junkhead's one of my favorite songs on this album.
Yeah, we are on Jughead too, and this is what I feel like Sick Man kind of tried to do. You know what I mean?
Ooh, interesting take.
Yeah, I like the song a lot better. It's just like a little bit shorter, but yeah. What's my drug of choice? Like you have the runs.
Yes.
Well, like all like that vocalists, I don't think other than Staley or Cantrell would do, where they have these little accents on their lines and things like that. And like we were talking about with Staley's control over his voice, almost like a soul singer. It's like
It's
just
such
like,
a
oh my God.
groovin' song. It's groovin', it's heavy. Oh, yeah, I love it. As a girl who's never done drugs, it's really silly that I like this song so much, though. I feel like a total poser.
Well, no, actually, no. It's a good thing, actually, because I did read that there were. So obviously, Lane Staley was very into his addiction and like had been trying to go through rehab and everything like that throughout, before and after this. And he said one of the things that he really tried not to do is like glorify drug use in this album and like make it seem like it's cool or whatever. And there were kids and guys and people that would come up to him be like, dude, dirt, yeah, getting fucked up, all right. And he said he always, like, I can't imagine what that did to the rest of his psyche when he's already feeling like low and down and stuff like that. So it's actually a good thing so that you can experience this and be like, I don't ever want to do drugs. Like, thanks, Lane Staley.
It's interesting, though, because it definitely could go either way where
I think this song or the album as a whole definitely is a caution sign for
Yeah.
drugs, you know, and Lane Staley's life and trajectory. But people who really look up to Lane and think he's really cool, which he is, may also think, well, I want to do what he does. So
Mhm.
it's a double-edged sword for
Yeah.
sure.
But if anybody, not that I think anybody is, but if anything out here, anyone listening to this is like, hey, drugs might be cool. Maybe I'll try that heroin that everybody is talking about. If you don't know, Lane Staley isolated himself for basically the last 2-3 years of his life, barely left his apartment, and apparently was like 80 pounds when he died or something like that. And he was 6 foot tall, to give an idea of like how unhealthy and like bad that he was. And one of the fact that makes me cry all the time, Tori, is the fact that it was his accountant that figured out that he hadn't been spending money in 2 weeks and
Oh
then
my
flagged
God.
that. And his, like, I forget if it was his mom, I think it was his mom, then did like called 911 to do a welfare check. But because he was so isolated, Jerry Cantrell, Mark Lanigan, Lane Staley's family and friends are like, oh, if we went months without talking to him, it wasn't unusual because he just divorced himself from everything that was going on. So nobody even fucking knew that this guy was dead because he was so depressed and isolated and out of touch and, in his own world that thought that, controlled by his demons, basically.
Mhm.
And
being
so
that
if you're thinking that-
isolated, it makes this music that much more important because it was probably one of the only avenues where he truly shared his inner workings, where we could really understand him.
Yeah, and that's such a good point, and why, despite everything that happened, I'm really glad that we have this here because, sometimes life doesn't go the way that you want it to, or people don't live their life the way that they should or are deserved or whatever, right? And I still, when I'm reading things or like watching documentaries, I'm just, maybe this is the time I'm watching this that Lane got clean and that he didn't overdose and die. But at least we have this for it, and we can remember him for the artist that he was and the music that he put out and everything like that, rather than, what ultimately ended up happening to him. Because like what you said, as far as this may have been like some of the only true representations that like you or me will ever see of him, that hits home because like when I get depressed, I do isolate, like not that bad, but like I definitely, retreat to my room, don't answer calls, texts, shut off social media and all that other stuff. And like I have lost days to depression before. I don't know if you know what that's like, Tori, but I don't know if anybody else knows what that's like, but you're just like you're laying in your bed looking at the ceiling being like, I should do something. And then all of a sudden, like 17 hours have passed or something like that. It's not a great feeling. And to think that it was even worse for him, I don't know. It just makes me fucking sad.
Yeah, it's really heavy. And not in like a cool, sick way, like
No.
the album, but like it's very heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very sad.
And then the sadness just keeps continuing with this.
This is
song. Like,
this is my
this
car
is where-
karaoke song.
Oh, this is your karaoke song? Oh, man. And here I thought that Down in the Hole might have been a little bit depressing I guess the bartenders love you because then all the well shots of whiskey start flowing after this one, right? Well, you
For
said
sure.
you've never done this in front of a person like at karaoke before?
No.
Okay.
No. I think I really resonate with this song. It sounds like a really messed up love song. Like it's, I think it answers a lot of questions about self-worth and what you think you deserve and your love life or relationships beyond that, and sort of relishing in shit. Now I'm like, ooh, did I choose a good album for this episode? Because I'm feeling it.
Well,
But I
listen,
also really appreciate the solidarity with you that we both have gone through kind of similar experiences, because I think without
Yeah.
a vessel like this album to open up these conversations, who knows if we would have ever been here to understand each other in this way.
And I think that's going to be kind of the magic of this project, I hope, is that I can open up and like relate to people. Because like I have, I'm neurodivergent. I have a hard time sometimes taking cues or like really jiving with people or like, really getting you're really connecting with people sometimes. I mean, through this, it's a little bit different because there's always a common goal or that like the camaraderie that brings us together. But in actual real life, I'm just like the kind of the awkward dude in the corner. But music like this and albums like this, just given the personal nature of the albums and what everybody else has gone through, I really think, like you were saying, bring people together to just kind of find a common ground piece
Yeah.
and then go from
And
there.
and as hosts too, we always put on a face of being so friendly and happy. And I think sometimes that, I don't know if you feel this way, I feel extremely misunderstood because I just look like I'm stoked on life all the time. But yeah, like I struggle with pretty major anxiety. I have moments where my mental health really suffers too. And that's why I listen to this music. And I think it's really great for you to be able to share your story too, because we usually are the ones helping other people talk about their lives. And this is a moment where you get to share and I get to share. And that's really neat too. So thank you for that.
Yeah, well, and thank you for opening up too, because like that goes both ways, right? And I
Yeah.
hope that when people listen to this, they'll be like, oh no, I can talk about stuff even if it's just like I'm on medication for something, right? Because there's no problem with that. There's a stigma around it, but fuck, man, like I've seen memes about like, dude, who isn't on medication these days? Like, if you're just raw dogging life right now, what are you doing? But I also hope that people know that they're not alone. They can go through stuff and then make other guests want to open up and talk about some stuff as well.
Yeah. I think there's the stigma too that if you're, I don't know, that vulnerability is something scary, but I think there's something really brave and strong about that. And it does take a certain amount of bravery and trust. So
Well,
yeah.
and I'm curious because I think that this can work both ways. I mean, obviously, you talk about the challenges of being a woman in the music industry on your podcast and everything like that, and also
Oh,
bring
yeah.
in the artists who have their own experiences and everything like that. But do you feel it's tough to be vulnerable as a woman in the music industry and as a woman like hosting and trying to get stuff out of artists?
There's so many levels to that question. 100% yes.
Mm,
Well, because and I talked about this a few times with different people on the podcast, but I
sure.
think there's when you're young and trying to prove yourself as a woman in the industry, I have felt that I had to put up a huge front of
Mm,
being tough and being mean and being like, I'm gonna take no shit.
yeah.
And so I would walk around with like this bitch face. Like I was just pissed off everywhere I went because it felt like the shield I needed to
Yeah.
look like I could stand up with the guys and that I was credible to be there. Now I don't have to do that anymore because I genuinely feel like I've earned my place. But I
Of
think
course.
that's something most women have felt too, is that pressure to have this facade up.
Yeah.
So it definitely can take a toll on your mental health, but it's a big fake it till you make it situation.
Yeah, that goes for anybody. One of the biggest things I've learned is that nobody knows what the fuck that they're doing, and just go. And like what we were saying here is like you're never gonna be ready for anything, so just like go and do it. On the flip side of that, right? I kind of feel some pressure that way too, because like obviously for men to be vulnerable, it has its own like stigmas and everything like that in
Course.
society as well. But I also am a lot more like jovial and nerdy and wholesome and not as tough and raw and raunchy and like all this other stuff is like your normal tried and true leather clad metalhead or whatever, right? Which is something that I've had to deal with a lot as far as like no, like it's okay to do that because I'm just like being me and there's no like right way or wrong way to be a metalhead. And kind of like we talked before, as far as like, being ashamed to admit that you just got into a band when like they've been around for fucking 20 years or whatever, it's, I definitely, with the anxiety that I have, self-worth and, confidence and everything like that has been something that I've struggled with throughout my entire life. And, because I was bullied as well, just like you were. And that does a really big number on, a growing person's self-worth and everything like that.
Oh, yeah.
And so I felt weird when I was like, oh, I'm not, I don't look this certain way or I don't act this certain way or like these are the metalheads doing something and, I should be like that. And it took me a little while to get it. No, fuck it. I'm going to like talk about what I
Yeah.
want to talk about. I'll just do my own thing. And, that comes with being online and with anxiety and everything like that. So like, I just like there's being vulnerable is scary. Let's just like put it out there for everybody. But yeah, I was just curious if you even like still feel a little bit of that, like, oh, I shouldn't say this or shouldn't do this because of X, Y, and Z, which I think we all go through.
Right. Well, what I want to say too about what you've just said what you're doing and being genuine and not being like the tough guy in metal, massively important, because I guarantee that there are a lot of guys who are just like you who feel so seen, and maybe because of you, you've alleviated the pressure to be the tough guy.
Well, Hope,
That matters.
You could say I will just like I will be happy if anyone even just like listens to this podcast first. Let alone we'll say all, like the changing everything like that.
But yeah, I don't necessarily feel a pressure to be a certain way anymore, because I understand that by being myself, I am helping other girls realize that they don't have to be a certain way to be in the industry, that you could be bubbly and silly and maybe look like you don't listen to metal, but then have the credibility that comes with loving the genre. Like, it doesn't matter.
It's true. And so many, like, from plenty of people have talked about this in your podcast, and I've heard it from so many people about what you just said about like putting on that mask and putting on that front before you get to a certain point. You're like, okay, now I can, let this go and be myself and everything, which is like, it's the same thing with, queer people in the industry and everything like that, right? Like any type of like marginalized community, it's like you shouldn't have to do that, right? But it's just like we're not at that point right now. It's getting better, but we're not at that point just yet.
We're not, but we're making progress. And I think the more people like us who are having these conversations, the easier it will be for people who come after us.
Yes.
Like, I know that the people who came before me and were open about these things helped pave the way for me to feel brave to do this now.
Certainly. And I love seeing the amount of people, whether it's yourself or anybody else, also trying to, break down those barriers and get to that point and say like, hey, like let's the attention to trying to fix all those things that have been a problem in our genre, in our industry, and just like in the world, in our society for a while has been really good to see over the last couple of years. And I hope that it continues. And I know that it will.
Thanks. Me too. Also, we've had two very silly songs just now. That Untitled 40-second chaos.
Yeah, just like, what is that? I didn't know for the longest time that was Tom Araya that was in the back of that. It's like, yeah, just like that scream that you heard is Tom. They sample Iron Man from like, I don't know what the fuck was going on. I think the first time I got this, I downloaded this from like Kazaa or LimeWire or something like that. I don't even think I heard that track. I either deleted it or it didn't come with the file, so I didn't even know that was a track for like 5-6 years or something. The benefits of growing up.
Fun discovery.
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck is this? Why did they put this on here?
I love whoever uploaded the album was just like, they don't need that.
Yeah, just fuck this. I'll save their time. So we are surprised. This album it's an hour long, but it goes by so fast. But also goes by fast when you have good conversation. These are the last 3 songs on here that just like boom, boom, boom. And like, if you weren't already like covering yourself in a blanket already, like you are now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. If you don't feel that pit in your stomach, we'll get you there.
So you said something that I want to chat about. So you're talking about doing your YouTube at like 14 and stuff like that. So you knew pretty early on that you wanted to do like music journalism or like talk with artists or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I was a total geek on MySpace and was a part of street teams and like posting bulletins about bands.
Yeah, you have told me about this. I do know this about you.
Like my top 8 were all my favorite bands. My music player was just constantly changing. Like that was just my life as a teen and like a preteen. So yeah, it was kind of inevitable. But yeah, I had done like an interview for a friend of mine who had a blog. And then I was like, wait, this is a thing you could do? And I'm like backstage talking to one of my favorite bands. So yeah, I got on that real quick.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how like if you again, I'm a couple years older than you, but we're very, very similar, like growing up. And I imagine that we had very similar like upbringings as far as like the time that we were in. And, we grew up in a time where there still felt like there was a big barrier between what you listen to and your artists. And it started to dissolve a little bit. Obviously not as much as it is right now, but it's interesting how even then with the, the advent of MySpace and bands getting discovered on MySpace and people embracing the internet as a way to discover music, that it's just like, okay, cool, I'm 14, 15, 16 years old. I'm going to go on this tour bus to talk to these bands or like go backstage to do that. And it just is a sign for anybody, whether you're young or want to reinvent yourself or whatever, just start trying doing the thing if you want, because you'll get so much farther than you think you will, because that barrier that you think is there is a lot more malleable than you actually think, because especially bands that aren't like, you know, Slipknot or Metallica or anything like that are happy to talk to basically anybody to get their stuff out there, you know?
Totally. And it comes back to what we talked about this before we started rolling of if you always wait for the right time, you'll never find it.
Yeah.
And I think that's so true with music journalism too, is like you just got to start somewhere. Start in your local scene. Just support music. Get excited about it. That's what I did. And I mean, did you do kind of a similar thing, or what was your path?
No, I was thrown into the deep end, basically. So, I told you I got my degree in photojournalism, and I worked as a photographer for newspapers for a little while. Quit that, moved in with my parents, started covering the Nashville Predators, moved to Nashville. That's actually what brought me down here. I was a hockey writer for a little bit, and I was doing sports media for a little while before working at the newspaper here. And then during the pandemic, I was like, man, my job sucks and I hate working in the news industry, and COVID is really bad. I need an outlet because there's no bars, no concerts, no nothing. And I was listening to a ton of music, and I just started streaming on Twitch. And eventually that just led me to Knotfest. And then so eventually I was just like talking to bands. So I went like, I had, you know, journalism experience and like experience in like hockey locker rooms and talking with like governors and like elected officials and all that other stuff, but not like in the music industry. So I very much had that imposter syndrome where I was like, now all of a sudden I'm talking to people that don't know who the fuck I am. People who are watching this are going to say, who the fuck is this guy? What are his credentials? What the fuck does he know? Why is he talking about? But I just did it. You know, I was just like, I was scared as fuck, and my anxiety was like, don't do it, run away. It's going to be more comfortable to run away. And I was like, I'm scheduling this meeting right now, so I have to do it. And then from there, I just gathered the experience, and, you know, I'm still doing my thing and establishing myself and all that. But from where I came just a couple of years ago to now, it's like night and day. So yeah, I didn't do the, you know, worked at it for like a little bit and found what I want to do. I just kind of fell into it and then was just like, oh, shit, well, I guess I'm kind of doing this now because I love it.
That's really crazy.
Yeah.
What a story. Who was your first interview?
For Knotfest?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, it's so long ago. I think it might have been Vexed.
Oh, I love them.
They're so great. And they were, I was nervous as fuck, but they were also, they hadn't even released their debut album yet. So they were also nervous as fuck. And Megan Taggart is such, oh my God, she's so lovely. Everyone in that band is lovely. But kind of talking about like being open and everything like that. She was talking about her imposter syndrome and the fact that like, we don't know why the fuck we're here. What are we doing? We're so nervous about everything. So we were able to like bond that way. I would have to go back and double check, but I think that was the case because it would have been May 21. And their album came out on my birthday that year. So yeah, that one line up.
That's a cool first interview.
Yeah.
And that you kind of came up together as well. That's really
exactly.
poetic.
I haven't gotten a chance to talk with them since, but yeah, I'm going to be interested to talk with them in a couple of years, knowing, you know, what they went through then and kind of be like, you reconnect and be like, oh, this is all the stuff that we both went through at that time.
That's what I love, having been in this since I was 14, is like the bands that I interviewed when I started are like massive now.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Pierce the Veil and stuff and Sleeping with Sirens were in their early days, and now they're like the staples of the scene.
They're the bands.
They're the bands, but like we all came up together.
Yeah.
And I didn't think about that when I was 14, 15, starting those interviews.
Yeah.
That's where we would all go. And now I'm like, man, we're all in this together. So it's created a cool community.
Yeah, it is really cool. And you love seeing people that you've talked to that are nice, have success as well, and, you know, work hard and, you know, get to where they're doing just by loving what they do and not quitting. And I think that's kind of the secret that I've been told from people. There's no secret, but it's like a lot of the people that have had success are just like, I just didn't quit longer than everybody else around me. And that's really what it was.
Yeah. I mean, I could say that for sure with even just myself. Like, I mean, I took a 2-year hiatus to realize how much I loved music and couldn't stay away from it. But yeah, you can't peel me out of here.
Yeah. And we have just like, look at that. Hate to Feel and Angry Chair just kind of whizzed by while we're doing
I've been
this.
listening though.
Oh, I've been listening
I've been listening on my angry
do
chair.
Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, yeah.
It's just so good. Yeah. I don't. Yeah.
Such a good song.
It's so good. And we're what, 50 minutes into this and haven't, I guess through like, you know, Sick Man, kind of we felt the lull, but otherwise than that, it's just like I'm always impressed at bands that can have longer albums that still keep you engaged a lot. Because, you know, we're in the time period where people don't listen to albums, Tori, which is another reason why I wanted to buck the trend and do this. But it is hard. Like, putting an album together is hard because you're like, well, if we only do 25 to 30 minutes, then people are going to be spending $25 on, like, this much music. But if we put an hour and a half of music on here, everybody's going to be fucking bored by the time that we're done. So there's such a fine line between, you know, making an album, well, not to make an album long, but to make it flow all the way through. And this is one of the reasons why it's a masterpiece.
And I think ebbs and flows are so important in any music. But I think that's what makes this album great too, is it has its highs and lows and storytelling. And that's why I hate when people are like, oh, I want only heavy music. I'm like, no, you don't.
You need the dynamics.
Because without the dynamics, your heavy parts won't feel heavy.
All right. We are at the last song. I paused it for effect, which I don't usually do. But yeah, so
This is like a finale song, though.
It really
That's what I love.
is.
This is like the start and the end are two benchmarks that actually matter on this album.
And it just, again, I don't know what the fuck was in the water or whatever, but just like think about the intros that they have on here. Them Bones, Damn That River with that bass line, Angry Chair with the drum, Wood with the bass line again. It's like every single song grabs your attention from the get-go, which I think is an underrated part of this album, is that, you know, from like the first couple of seconds, you're like, oh, that's interesting or that's cool, and it's going to take you through the rest of it, which is nearly impossible to do, I think.
Yeah, it sets the tone within the first 5 seconds. That's so important. I mean, as a journalism writer, I know that's important in writing, and it is as important in music.
Yeah, it's so true. So let's do it. I'm going to hit play, and we're going to let this one take us out. This is a perfect song. When I first discovered this, I would listen to this album all the way through, and then after I got to this one, I would just repeat this song probably like 7 or 8 times. So like add another like half hour, 45 minutes or whatever to an album, but there was a time when I was just rinsing this song over and over and over again.
And this is the singles on this album aren't like overrated singles. You know how
No.
sometimes the singles are like actually the worst songs on an album, but like not here.
No.
They're actually that good.
Let's see. Yeah. Wood, Them Bones, Angry Chair, Rooster, and Down in a Hole. Like, give me a fucking break.
Like that's enough for 5 bands to see lifetime success.
Done. Done.
And that's not even looking at Facelift at all.
Yeah, or Dirt. Oh yeah, we could probably do another facelift or like do Facelift at some point. Man in the Box. Oh my god.
It's nuts. Yeah, but I mentioned to you before where it's like my constant debate of which album I love more, Facelift or Dirt. Generally, I pick Dirt, but there are moments where I'm like, man, but like Love, Hate, Love, such an amazing
Hate,
song.
Love. Yeah, it's basically like whichever one you've listened to last is your favorite album.
Yep. And look, no one will ever replace Lane Staley, but I do want to give a shout out to William Duvall
Yeah,
for holding down the fort.
I can't even believe I haven't asked you about that yet. Are you a fan, and what do you think of newer Alice in Chains output? They've got the 3 albums that they have, which I hadn't listened to the 2018 one until literally yesterday. I was like, fuck, I haven't listened to this at all.
Yeah, I've seen them a couple times with William, and I thought it was great.
Yeah.
I mean, look, he'll never be Lane Staley,
No, of
so I
course
don't
not.
think you can look at it and compare. That's not fair. But I think he's doing a really great job performing the songs, and he's rocking it.
Yeah.
Like, as an Alice in Chains fan, I approve. And it makes me happy that because I was not alive in the era where these songs were played with Lane, that I could at least have the experience of hearing them live.
Al Dance's hand goes so hard.
And that ending, it's coming. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
Finished.
Yeah.
How do you end an album like that? It's crazy.
And the slowdown on that's one of the things that I picked up in like later listens, but instead of just doing dun, dun, they like slow everything down so it's just a little bit, you're like off of what you're expecting, and just, oh my God. One of the best closers, I think, of all time on like any album right there.
Best opener, best closer. Like, it's crazy.
Oh, yeah, I think I haven't ever sat down and done like an actual like top 10, top 15 albums of like my favorite all time. I have like thoughts and stuff like that, but I do think this one would probably be a shoo-in for being on the top 10. Just everything that, you know, it's led me to, everything that it's helped me kind of like process and discover about myself, and you know, the friends and camaraderie and like, you know, the good nights had like with a beer in a hand and arm over a buddy's shoulder singing fucking like Rain When I Die or whatever, you know?
Yeah, I completely agree. It's in my top 10. I mean, that's why we're doing this episode on it. But and I knew we had similar tastes. We do have similar tastes in so many ways, but this just solidified it for me. I'm just like, yep.
Yeah. Well,
Yep.
I love being able to just like find that Venn diagram, you know, that middle of the Venn diagram with people, because you love your screamo stuff and a lot of stuff that I probably wouldn't, you know, listen to on my worst day or whatever. And I'm sure that there's plenty of shit that you're just like, what the fuck is this stupid nerd shit? This dude cannot sing and it sounds like a fucking nails on a chalkboard. But then we have Alice in Chains and we have Chelsea Wolfe and we have like all of these other great bands, and it's the, you know, the similarities that bring us together, not the differences that tear us apart.
Ain't that the truth? And that's okay. You don't have to like my metalcore. I will never hold you to that.
That's okay.
But I like the middle of the Venn diagram, and I'm glad that this album's in there, because it's definitely, I can tell it's special for both of us, and probably for a lot of people listening too.
I hope so. And if you're one of those people that haven't, you know, listened to it all the way through, whether, you know, which version of this podcast you're listening to, I hope that regardless, you go and give this a spin afterwards, because it really, really, really is such a special album. And I would say the place to start for Alice in Chains.
And again, I want to reiterate that it does not matter that you were there in the beginning or that you're not an OG fan. It is cool to listen to Alice in Chains at any point. And, you know, being so important that this is Lane Staley's like parting gift with the world and like our way of remembering him and his story. Like, we need these new generations of fans to hold this into the future and take it with you. So keep it alive.
100% keep it alive. And I will put a bow on this by saying, so we were talking about William Duvall. I mean, Black Gives Way to Blue is one of the best comeback albums I think that you could possibly have ever hoped for. And I'm curious, you know, people who had, like, I had thankfully heard Alice in Chains before that album came out and had got a little bit of accustomed to them. But I know people that were alive during Lane Staley's life and like were there when he died and then heard this album, were like, oh my fucking God, like I'm gonna cry. This album is so good. Holy shit. I'm curious to see how the new generation of people that haven't experienced that feel about those albums. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Check My Brain's one of my favorite Sinky riffs of all time. So, and that's on Black Gives Way to Blue. So there's a lot of merit in the new music too, in my opinion. Well, they're still crushing it. And I'm glad to see that Alice in Chains is still around so we can all experience a live show in some capacity.
Yes, we can. So, Tori, thank you so much for hanging out with me on this day that it is, for listening to Alice in Chains, for being a great person and chatting. And like, it always makes, I'm sure you know this, but as a host, it always makes my job a lot easier when the conversation is flowing, you have a rapport with someone and they're just like engaged and wanting to converse and chat and share stories and everything like that. So it's been amazing chatting with you. We'll do it again. And
Please,
thank you so much for hopping on with me.
My pleasure. Like, I knew this was going to be awesome. You surpassed my expectations, and best of luck with this series. Like, it's amazing. So keep doing what you're doing. I'm glad I could be a part of it.
Yes, amazing. Thank you so much. Just so many huge, big, humongous thanks for Tori for lending her time and opening up about herself and this album. I really hope that you go and check out She's with the Band and Beyond the Breakdown. And in fact, not only do I encourage you, I urge you to go do it. There's just no such thing as too many passionate people trying to spread good and positivity in the world, and you really should support them whenever you come across those type of people. As she mentioned in the episode, you can find episodes of She's with the Band on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, and you can can become a Knotfest premium member right now at knotfest.com to access all the episodes of Beyond the Breakdown. There's a new episode available right now featuring Knocked Loose that is just still sizzling and steaming because of how fresh off the grill it is. Go check it out. Seriously, the amount of behind-the-scenes knowledge that Tori is able to extract from the artists and the crew members, the lighting designers, stage productionists, sound engineers, and everybody else is truly, genuinely incredible. You can follow her at Tori Kravitz, at SWTB Pod, and at Knotfest if you want to stay updated on everything that Tori's got going on, which I'm sure you do. All right, that is the end of another Wax Spin, my friends. Don't forget to share your thoughts down in the comments section below if you're on YouTube or Spotify. If you're listening to this album on Apple Podcasts or some other type of audio device, you can send us an email at spinningthewax@gmail.com. I would love to read your thoughts on the air about all of these albums that we've been listening to and everything like that. Check us out on socials at Spinning the Wax on Instagram. You can check me out at StayPuffed_Malo there as well. And head over to Patreon to subscribe and support the channel. If you're on YouTube, give us a subscribe and a like as well. That little bell icon you hear so much about, one of those as well. You'll get a new music updates on Patreon when you sign up, including early access, exclusive content, bunch more. Eventually, one of these days, I'll figure out the live stream issue. We tried to do a maiden Patreon voyage exclusive, and we did it on YouTube, and they did not like the fact that we were playing music videos and shit on there. So I don't know. We'll try again with just audio at some point. But come on over, help support the show, keep the lights on, everything like that. Patreon.com/spinningthewax. And shout out to our Moshmellows, Triceracop, Christ Flesh, Zero Signal, Dactyls, and everybody else who is supporting the show. We'll be back in 2 weeks, my friends, on December 4th when Enrique Sagarnara of Crypt Sermon, The Silver, and Relapse Records listens to Dance of Death by Iron Maiden. Oh yes, my friends, we finally get a Maiden album on the stream, and you're not gonna want to miss it. Until next time, though, we will see you on the other side. Stay safe and stay sane. Stay heavy. Stay puffed.